Hey everyone, welcome back to Daily Tuition. In this tutorial, I want to show you how you can create your own library using JavaScript. So in this tutorial, we are going to create a simple image slideshow. I will show you if you want to create your own library, what kind of things you need to have. I'm not going to create the complete library here, but I will show you the demo to create your own library. Very simple and short library. There are different ways to create a library in JavaScript, just like using functions or using object-oriented programming. So in this tutorial, I'm going to make this library using functions because it's very easy to understand. I just wanted to share this idea to make the library. That is why I made this video. So before we getting late, let's get started. So as you can see, I have here tutorial empty folder, and in this folder, I'm going to create a new folder and name this folder library. Now, in this library folder, I'm going to create a new index.js file. So I'm going to just create here index.js. So this is my library file name. I'm going to just close this welcome window, and in this folder I'm going to create a new file index.html. So this is just a demo file. In this file I'm going to just create a simple HTML5 snippet and just specify the title slideshow. And I want to link the style.css file to this HTML, so I'm going to create a new file here style.css and link this file right here. So I will just say here link style.css. Save the changes. Now just after that, in index.html file, I'm going to create my first library. Now to create your own library, you just need to first create your .js file. So this is my index.js file. In this file, I'm going to first add IIFE function. So I'm going to add here immediately invoke function expression. To create this function, you just need to call the parenthesis, then specify a function keyword, and this function is anonymous function, so you don't need to specify any name to this function. So I will just specify here parenthesis, specify the body of my function, right? And now just after this parenthesis, I'm going to call this function. So to call this function, I will specify parenthesis here. So this syntax known as immediately invoke function expression. But what is the benefit of using this immediately invoke function expression? Immediately invoke function expression can be used to avoid variable hoisting from within blocks, protect against polluting the global environment, and simultaneously allow public access to methods while retaining privacy for variables defined within the function. To this function, I'm going to just pass here a parameter window. And when we call this function, I'm going to pass window object here. So I'm going to just say here window, right? In this function right here, I'm going to just write my code. So I'm going to just say here code here, right? Now in this function, I'm going to create here a new function. So I'm going to just say here function my library and just specify the body of this function. Now in this function, I will just create a new object. To create this object, I'm going to just say here let and just specify the name of my object. So I will just say here my library, right? And I will leave this object as it is. If you want, you can specify any value in this object. So I'm going to just say here name and specify value daily, right? And just after that, I'm going to just return this object to this function. So I'm going to just say here return my library, right? So we can access these object variables outside of this function, right? Now just after that, what I'm going to do is right here I will just create a new property to this window object. So I'm going to just say here new window property. So whenever you create a new code, don't forget to specify comment here, because when you create a library, it's very important to specify comment to demonstrate that particular code. So that is why we always specify comment when we create a new code. I want to create a new property to this window object. So I'm going to just say here if window.global library name is equal to, so I'll just strictly check the value. So I'll just specify here assignment operator and then specify the double quote undefined, right? And just after that here I will just specify type of. So this will check if we don't have this property. I'm going to just create this property. So I will just say here window dot global library name is equal to my library and call this function, right? So to this property, I'm going to call this function. So whenever we call this property, this will call this function. So you can globally access your function with this property. I will just export this function. So I will just say here export default and just specify this property, right? So I'm going to just say here global library name, right? Now as you can see, you don't need to specify window object here to access this property. Save the changes. I'm going to create here a new file called main.js. So I'm going to just say here main.js and link this file to index.html file. So I'm going to just say here in this body section script source, and in the source I will just say main.js, right? And I want to add modules in this file, so I will just specify type module. Save the changes, and in main.js file I'm going to just say here import library from, and I want to add index.js file. So I will just say here index.js. So I'm going to just say here console.log and just say here library, right? Save the changes. When you open this file in the live server, so I'm going to just open this live server, you can see you have your object property and value on the console. Now here, as you can see, this library is useless. Library can solve your problems, create new things, and just simplify your work. That is why we create a new library. Now let's create this library useful. We are going to create this library for Slideshow, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just open the index.html file, and in the body section right here I'm going to create container division tag. In this container I'm going to add image tag and specify my images. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just copy a few images and paste that images in my tutorial library and create here a new folder called asset and paste that images in this folder. And right here you can see you have this asset folder, and I want to use this image in this file. So I'm going to just specify here asset and specify this image here. Copy this image tag, paste it here, just change this image to image 2, this became image 3, and this became image 4. And now as you can see you have 4 images here, right? I want to create a slideshow using these 4 images. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just open my index.js file, and right here I'm going to create a new function. So I will just say here new slideshow function. So I will just create a function here and name this function slideshow. Now in this function I want to just call this container div. So what I'm going to just say here constant container is equal to document.querySelector and just specify here dot container, and just after that I will just say cgl container. This console.log is going to return this container. Now to call this function, what I'm going to do is I will just get rid of this property and just specify here start property, and the value is going to be this function. So I'm going to just specify this reference of this function. So I'll just say here slideshow, right? In main.js file I will just get rid of this console.log message and just say library.start. So I'm going to just call this property start, and just after that just specify parentheses here to call this function, right? Now save the changes, and when you open your browser you can see you have this container. But if you change this name of this container, you're going to get an error message. To solve this problem, I'm going to pass here a parameter called selector and pass this parameter right here, except specifying this hard-coded value. So I will just say here selector. So when we call this function, I can pass this container in this parenthesis right here, right? Like this. Just after that, I will just get rid of this console message, and right here I'm going to get the children's of this container. So I want all these images in the variable. So I will just say here let child is equal to container dot children, right? So this property will return all the children's to this child. Let me show you. If I just say here console.log and print the child, you can see we have here images, right? Now, just after that, I'm going to just say here let carousel items is equal to array. So I'm going to just create a variable of a blank array and then just say for let I is equal to 0, I is less than child dot length and I plus plus. So I'm going to just increase the value of I by 1, and then here what I want to convert this object into array. So I'm going to just pass here carousel items of I is equal to child of I. So I'm going to pass each value of child to this array. So when you print this array like this, carousel items, you're going to get an array here, right? Whoops, spelling mistake, th here, right? Length. Save the changes, and when you execute it, you're going to get an array of images, right? If you just use this child, this is going to return an object. I want to convert this object into array, that is why I use this code. Now, get rid of this console, and just after this console, right here, I'm going to create a new property to this object. So I'm going to just specify here carousel items, right? And to this library, I will just specify empty array. Now, just after that, I will just call this object. So I will just say my library dot carousel items is equal to carousel items, right? So I'm going to pass this array to this property, right? So when you call this function, you can access your images using this property. Save the changes. Now, just after that, right here, I'm going to just say container dot style dot background image. So I want to specify background image to this container, and I will just specify here URL, and I want here carousel items, and just specify the 0 index here, and I want to specify the source attribute value to this URL. So I will just say here source. Save the changes. You have the background image here. I just specify the background image to this container and just specify the first image to this container. Before we move on, I just need to specify style to this document. So I will just open my style.css file and just specify HTML and body, and I want to specify here width 100% and height 100%. Just after that, I will just specify asterisk sign to select all the tags and specify padding 0 and margin 0. I will just remove all the padding and margin from all the HTML tags. Just after that, I will just select the container and I want to specify width 100% and height 100%, right? Then I will just specify margin auto to center the images. Then I will just say overflow content hidden, and then I will specify border 0 and background size is going to be cover, right? Save the changes, and you can see this first image here. Now just after that, I will just specify here new class called clip circle. In this class, I will first specify background size cover, then I will just specify height 100% and width 100%. Then I will just specify position absolute, and top property is going to be 0. Then I will specify box sizing border box, and then specify very interesting property which is clip path, and then specify here circle, and I want to specify value 0% and center. Now for this tutorial, this clip path property is very important. The clip path CSS property creates a clipping region that said what part of an element should be shown. Parts that are inside these regions are shown, while those outside are hidden. So I just want to specify the specific region of the image. That is why I use this clip path property. And just after that, I'm going to just specify here transition clip path, specify 1.5 second each, right? And just after that, right here, I'm going to create a new class active and just specify clip path circle 100% at center. Now just after that, I will just add this clip circle class to my images. So I'm going to just open my index.html file and just specify here a class and just specify this clip circle class here, right? Like this. Save the changes, and when you reload your application, you can see this type of result. So this is the background image we specified to this container using index.js file right here. Now what I want to just add this active class to my images. So let's see what's happened if I just add this active class to these images. So now if I just say here carousel items of 1, so you know that in this array I have images, right? So if I just say here 1 dot class list dot add, and if I just add this active class, then let's see what's happened. If I just say save and open my browser, you can see this type of result, right? Because we added here clipping path 100%, and this is going to change this 0% to 100% when we add this class. I'm going to just get rid of this statement, and I want to create an automatic slideshow. So I will just create here set interval function, and in this function I will call a function and specify a time here. So I'm going to just specify a millisecond here. So as you can see, if I just specify here 4000, this is going to execute this function after every 4 seconds. Before this function, I will just say let next is equal to 1. I want to start these images from the first array index. Now in this function, I will just say if the next is greater than or equal to the carousel items dot length, then I want to just specify next is equal to 1 and just specify here else carousel item of next dot class list dot add, and I'm going to add a new class which is active. And now just after that, I will just print this next on the console. Save the changes. You can see this next value here after every 4 seconds. But now I want to increase this next value by 1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to specify here next plus plus. So this is going to increase this value of this variable by 1. Save the changes. So now when you execute this application, you can see here after every 4 seconds this image is going to change, and you can see here the next variable value, right? Now if the value of the next variable is more than the images, I'm going to just specify the default value to the next variable. So when I have 4 here, I'm going to just specify the default value to this next variable using this if statement. Just after that, as you can see here, if I open the element, if I open this division tag, you can see we have this active class added to these images. Now what I want to just remove this active class when this if statement is executed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just specify here carousel items dot map and just create here a parameter images is equal to, and in the body of this function I will just say here images dot class list dot remove, and I want to remove active class. I will just specify here active. Save the changes, and if the value of this next variable is more than the value of these images, this will remove all the active class from these images. Now this will remove all this active class from these images. Now our slideshow is completed. Now what I want user to select this set interval timeout. To do that, I'm going to create here a new property and name this property slide time and specify the default value 4000. I'm going to pass this property right here. My library dot slide time. Save the changes. And if you want to change this slideshow time, then you can change that as well. So what you need to do is you just need to open the main.js file, just specify library dot slide time is equal to, and then specify the millisecond. So I'm going to just specify here 1000. Save the changes, and you can see the time of this slideshow is changed. If you want, you can access the images as well, like this. If I just say here library and then specify carousel items, and if I put this in the console, and if I just copy this statement and paste it just after this function, I'm going to get images on the console. So as you can see, you can access the images using this property. So now as you can see, our library is created. If you want, you can add more functionality in this library, just like specify the next and the previous button to change the image, and also specify the indicators of that images. You can do a lot more things with libraries. So now your library is created. You can add many functions as you want, and now you can use this library as many times as you want. If you have any question, you can ask me anytime. Don't forget to share this video, like this video, and don't forget to subscribe it for more programming videos. That is all for now. I will see you in the next tutorial.